Yeah.
We are ready to get started. We are on Daf Ches Amud Beis, about 2/3 down, the last word on the line. So let's just retrack what we were learning, because this is just a continuation of what we had until now. What we learned recently was, if you have a person who owed a lot of different people money, Choivis and Mazikin, and he got divorced too. He was having a bad week, yeah. And he had Idis, Beninis, and Ziburis. He had properties to service all the different types of debt. And he sells all of the properties to one person. That person now steps in his shoes, and any claim for Idis, the buyer would have to pay with the Idis that he purchased from the Balchoid. And then he claims for Beninis, he'd have to give, and then he claims for Zibur, should have to give. So what would happen? Amar Rava, Reuven Shemachar Kol Sadoisav LeShimon. So now Shimon is fully liable for all of the debt that Reuven had, because he bought all of Reuven's properties. And then Shimon was smart. V'halach Shimon umachar sada achas leLevi. And out of the 3 fields, he sold the Beninis to Levi. Why? Because he knows there's a Balchayv, and he figures, let me unload the hot potato, let Levi deal with the trouble. And now the Balchayv Reuven comes along. He has a right to collect Rotzim Mizegoiva. He can collect from Levi, because the main lien for the loan is on Levi. But Rotzim Mizegoiva, he also has a right to collect from Shimon. Shimon will probably push him to Ziburis, because he'll tell Shimon, you are the one who's the stand-in to my loiva, because you bought all of his properties. But Loya Moran, we only say that the Balchayv can go to Levi, who's a step away from Shimon. We only say that the Balchayv can collect from Levi, Ela de Zavan Beinis. That's only if the property that Levi bought was the Beinis, because that's the main lien. Aval Zavan Idis v'Ziburis, but if Reuven sold to Shimon Idis and Ziburis and retained the Beinis for himself, Loi, then the Balchayv's only option is to collect the Beinis from Shimon. The Omar Le, because Levi will say to any Balchayv who wants to collect from him, Lahachi daki v'zavni idis v'ziburis. I made sure not to buy the hot potato. I made sure not to buy the Beinis. I only bought the idis v'ziburis. Ara deloy chazilach. This is land that you're not entitled to. Your lien is on the Beinis. Go back to Shimon. Vafilu zavan Beinis nami lo yamarim. And even if Levi bought Beinis from Shimon, he still can deflect the creditor. If he didn't leave any Beinis in Shimon's hand, he bought all the Beinis, only then can the creditor collect the Beinis from him. Why? The Levi has no argument to the creditor that even Beinis, sure, Beinis is your main loan, but don't come to me, I'm one step removed. Go first to Shimon. He has Beinis. Aval Shire Beinis to Kavasa Gabi Shimon, but if he left Beinis, Loi Govamine, then the creditor has no right to come to Levi and collect the Motzi Amar Lei, because he can say, Hinachti Lachmokim Ligavais Mimen. I left place by Shimon, and Shimon is the first position over me. Go after Shimon. Gevaltik. Amar Abaye. Tosfos actually brings another raya from here. Remember, we had a discussion. What if you have 2 properties that are Beinis as a loiva, and you want to give him Beinis A, and he wants Beinis B? Whose choice is it what he takes? So we actually did the Machlokes Rishonim. The Rosh said that if you make a declaration, I don't really care which one he takes, then he has a right to take whichever one he wants. But if you have a preference, you could tell him which one you want to take. So that's relevant over here as well, because the Malva, the creditor, can't come and tell Levi, no, I don't want that Beinis that Shimon kept for himself. I want the Beinis that you bought. But there it is. Even if Shimon had both those baininnesses, Shimon would be able to say, you're going to take this baininess and not that baininess. So therefore, Levi has the same right to say that. Take that baininess, don't take my baininess.
So it's actually a little different, right? In that case, it's one person telling another person, no marshalling. I can tell you which one to take from, or the collector can say, I can take which one I want. Here are two different people. Levi's one step removed.
I'm happy you brought it up. On Friday, we had the svara of Ma'amocha Rishon L'Sheni called Schusha Tov L'Yada. So just like Shimon could have decided which one the creditor will take, when Levi bought the property, he gets that right along with it. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. And that's what Tosfos speaks out. That's what Tosfos speaks out. Zok Gemara about it. Amar Abaye. Reuven shemocher soda l'Shimon b'achrayis. Reuven sold the field to Shimon, and he included a guarantee that if due to my creditor, this property is seized from you, I will refund your money in full. But also b'achoyv to Reuven, and in fact that happened. Reuven's creditor came along, the Tarf Mishim. Now, this dispute, this transaction is between Shimon and the creditor. Reuven's sort of out of the picture because Reuven, it's not his property anymore. And they're going after the lien property, which is by Shimon. So the lach is dinahu to also Reuven and Mishtoi Dina Bade. Reuven can actually get involved and he could say, I am a relevant party to this case. And the creditor can't say, Reuven, don't mix in here. This is none of your business. This is between me and Shimon, because he can say, I'm very relevant here. To Amar Lei imafkas minei, if you're going to take the property away from Shimon, alai hunters come right back to me. So I'm very relevant here into this situation. The Ikadami, there are those who take it a step further. Even if Shimon bought the property without recourse, so Reuven is insulated from any damages, because Shimon can never come back to him anyway. He still could say, I'm a member of this, I'm party to this dispute. The Omer Lei, lo nichali to the Havel Shimon Terumasalai. Yeah, he can't collect from me, but he ain't going to be happy with me, and I'm surely going to have a problem selling to other people in the future. I'm very relevant. Tosfos asks a bomb kash. What difference does it make if Reuven could be involved here or not? Is there any taina that Reuven would be able to make to prevent this fellow from collecting that Shimon couldn't make? What else is he bringing to the table? What? So, beautiful. Reuven could take parati. Correct Tosfos, since the Lokeach, Shimon, is defenseless because he doesn't know what happens, Bezdin automatically tied his parati. So I say, what do I need Reuven for? If Reuven's out of the picture, Bezdin tied his parati for Shimon anyway, and unless the Malva can produce a star with Kiyum, he won't be able to collect. So whatever taina Reuven would have said, Bezdin will say for Shimon anyway. So what advantage is it to this din Torah that Reuven could be involved? So let's see Tosfos inside, and that's what Tosfos struggles with. My nafkamina. What difference does it make if Reuven could be involved? Whatever Reuven could have tined, tanina leila Shimon. Bezdin will tine it for Shimon because the rule is the tanina leila keach became the assignment. You always make the tinies on behalf of the keach and the assignment because they're blind. They don't know what happened. So you have to protect them. There's two tinies that you could say. One is what Shlomi brought up, Bein Perua. We say, I paid. And Bein Mezuyif, or maybe your whole star is Mezuyif, and you'll have to bring Eitim. And therefore, in order for the creditor to be able to collect, he'll have to produce a Dikiyim, or Trich a Dikiyim. If you won't say that Bezdin automatically tinies this for a Lakeach, L'Shavkas Kaim L'Choberia. Anytime someone buys a property, any stranger could come along and say, the guy you bought it from owes me money. And if you can't time the parati or mezuyif, then you don't stand a chance.
So further, that it goes even before. If you move it, Shimon you suffer. The choy just follows along with
Correct. So therefore, we have to be able to protect the buyer from such a claim. It goes more. In Perek Basha, we also prove that you make this time on behalf of the Lekeach. A Shchivmar who said, a man's about to die, and he has $1 million estate, and his children are already salivating, thinking about pulling that plug, and he says, "Guys, I owe $1 million to Beryl." Oh, now suddenly they're going to start. Oh, Beryl's laughing. Beryl just checked in. As I said, I owe $1 million to Beryl. Beryl checked in. It was just an example. If that wasn't impeccable timing, gewaltig. The Kabbalah Shchivara, Mana LaPleni Biyadi, don't be so excited. The $1 million I owe to Beryl. Amar Tnu, if the dying father said, please give him the money, then Noistim Loy, then we give it to Beryl without any questions. But Loy Amar Tnu, if he didn't specifically instruct his children to pay, he just said Mana LaPleni Biyadi, then Ein Noistim. And the Gemara says over there, that's even if Beryl has a star, he still can't collect unless the Shchivmura said Tnu. Amar Tnu, Chaime Lishtari. If the dying man says Tnu, that's as if we're Makayim the star, and now he can collect with it. Loy Amar Tnu, Loy Chaime Lishtari. If there's no kiyum, what's the problem? Mashma the Tanina Lahu Yasme Mezuyef. Vice the Chois, that Bezdin will automatically time the Mezuyef unless the creditor can verify the star. He wrote a lot about this. So we've knocked off the potential for Reuven's bringing the advantage about a taina of Mezuyah for Paraiti. But what about another taina? What if the Edim of the Balchoiv, the Edim that the Balchoiv is bringing to prove that he was Mekayim the star, are related to Reuven? So the apostle, we're Chaykim Shimon. So we need Reuven here because since Reuven's involved, those Edim are Negeh B'Dover, and those Edim will be possible. If it wasn't for Reuven, maybe those Edim will be kosher. Zoktamar, no. Zoktamar doesn't matter because it's Negeh for Shimon as well. They can't even say Edus, even if it's only a direct case between Shimon and the creditor. Even the Tarflemi Shimon, also Reuven. Since if the property is going to be seized from Shimon, Shimon is going to go after Reuben. So these Edom are Negea, both the Shimon and the Reuben, and therefore, regardless, these Edom would be possible. Or how about a different case of Edom? Let's say Shimon had to make them for some reason that would say the creditor cannot collect. V'hem Kroivim, and they're related to Shimon, Sulam Lahayid Afil Reuben. They would be possible to provide Edom even for Reuben. Why? Because they'll still benefit Shimon, even though they're benefiting Reuven. Shimon's not interested in having the property seized and then he should go collect from Reuven. He'd rather just keep the property. So it's benefiting him as well. So therefore, that's not either an advantage or disadvantage of Reuven being involved. So let's skip the rest of the rayas. So Zok Toisvis, V'yashloimar, the Nafkamina, L'raya Achroina. I believe the Gemara says somewhere that wherever Shimon Gamliel is quoted, the Loch Gamoisai, Chutz Me'arev Vitzidain V'Raya Achroina. What's the case of Raya Achroina? Going to Amar Shimon. Shimon declared him like that they were standing in the entire and Bezna Shimon. So, do you have any proof theory of Edim that will help your case? And Shimon said, no, I have nothing. I have nothing. Ainli Edim, the Ainli Raya. And then when Shimon sees that the case is getting really desperate, and it looks like his property is going to be seized. Oh, no, I have Edim. Lachazman Motza Raya Edim. The halacha is the Shimon and Yochalavim. We don't trust Shimon to bring them anymore because maybe he fabricated them because his back is up against the wall. But if Reuven is in the picture, Reuven Shalom Amar Ainli Edim. Reuven never said I don't have Edim. He is Yochalavim. So what Reuven brings to the table is if it's an unusual case where Shimon said, I didn't have any raya, and therefore any raya he'll bring will be disqualified. Reuven gives him another life. Inami, let's say the creditor is summoning them to Bezdin Agadol, not in the city, a far trip. Shimon can't make it. It was Shimon Lamati Lemitrach to my Reuven. So then Reuven can go and represent the case. So, or he could want him to go because he can't have a way of getting out of it. So at the end of the day, the Gemara is saying is Reuven is involved in this entire. It's not earth-shattering. What are you going to deliver here? But it's still
it's actually his death. At the end of the day, it's his death. But I don't like the second riot. Like Shimon could have had inside information or had somebody told him, don't worry about that, Balchoy, because you know what? I know that he was paid off. And therefore, when the property is being sold in the market, and people are saying it's gonna be devalued because everybody
Shimon
knows.
takes a bargain. Shimon
because
gets a bargain.
Right, everybody
Shimon
knows.
has information.
He goes, I know that he's not a Balchoy.
Right. Right, so therefore,
So therefore, the guy can bring what, I don't care what, if it's, Shimon can always have those Aiden, whatever it is, even if they're.
no, he can't, because what if they asked him, do you have Edom? He said no. He should have said yes,
No,
I have
that was,
Edom.
that was the answer.
That's right, I heard it.
That said that Shimon can't even bring Aiden that are prohibited to Reuben.
Correct.
Why not?
Because Reuben's the Gebedom.
But I'm Shimon. I'm the.
It doesn't make difference, but you can't trust Edom who have a dog in the race. They have a pony in the race. They want to help their relative.
Because they're related to Reuben.
Yeah, and indirectly they're helping Reuben. Yeah. Okay. Zok to Gemara Vayter. Vamar Abaye. Reuben shemocher sadol l'Shimon shaloi b'achrayis. Reuben sold Shimon a field without recourse. V'yotzu aleh asikim. And there were rumors coming up that this property does not belong to Reuben, and therefore he just purchased the Brooklyn Bridge. So if Shimon did not yet make a chazaka in it, and at this point we're going to assume that the chazaka means a kinyan, the purchaser Shimon could back out of the deal. Why can't he? He didn't buy it yet. We're gonna have to see. But if he already made a kinyan of chazaka in it, now it's irrevocable, and therefore he can't back out.
What are these Asikin?
I'm sorry?
What are these Asikin?
Asikin is Oyrim, people who are claiming Shalonuhi, that it's our property. Reuben sold you a property that never belonged to him.
Yes. So doesn't Shaloi B'Achrais mean that there's creditors?
No.
That there's a lien on it?
No.
Shaloi B'Achrais means whatever happens, it's not my problem. I'm selling you this property as is, no representations here. Whatever happens to it is your problem. If the engine fails tomorrow, it's your problem.
Yeah. But what's these Asikin? It's just pure Reuben.
Well, people are, there's no Edom came, but there are people saying it's our property, but there's no proof yet. So there's trouble brewing, but there's still no real fire here. So the halacha is, but once you made the kinyan and it's irrevocable, you bought yourself a lemon. My time, the Amarle, the seller is going to tell the buyer, Chayosat the Katri, Savris a Kabbalas. You bought an empty bag of air. You thought it was full of gold coins, and it was really empty. You got ruined, but you took a risk, and your risk didn't pay off. So when is there a chazaka? What is this kinyan? And at what point does it become irrevocable? When you walk around the borders of the field. This is only if it was shaloi b'achrayis, you could back out before you made this chazaka. Abu b'achrayis, but if you bought the field with recourse and there's trouble brewing because of the achrayis, you're allowed to back out. Abu b'achrayis loy. Well, the question is, can you force me to make the deal? So I'll explain to you what's right. Let's see the Gemara in a second. The Ikadamri, I feel about Achrayis, I can't back out. Nami, you know why? Because of rumors, you can't back out. You got to pay me. You got to take the field. Yes, if it's legally seized from you, you'll have a star from Bestin that says it was legally seized from you. Present it to me, and then within 6 months, within 180 days, you'll have your refund check. Right? Because you've already made the deal. So now Tosfos has a huge problem. Which is the third line from the top. The parakam above Mitzvah appears Rashi, because Rashi over here doesn't say what this chazak is. But above Mitzvah, Rashi does tell us. Even if he didn't pay it, it's still irrevocable. Why? The karka nikdas b'chazaka. Chazaka is one of the kinyanim with which you can purchase property. You made a chazaka here, you now have an irrevocable kinyan. The kasha, correct Tosfos, I don't understand Rashi. First of all, there's many ways to be koina karka. So am I nakat chazaka, Yosy be kesef or star. Why does the Gemara say here, until you did a chazaka, you can't back out? The Gemara should have said, if it's all about a kinyan, until you do one of the kinyanim, like chazaka, or kesef, or star. It seems like there's something special here about chazaka. And according to Rashi, it's just Kenyan. So why should it be chazaka? Void, Makaboi me'emes have a chazaka. Why is the Gemara here in Bava Kama discussing the halacha of being koine a field with chazaka? That sugi doesn't belong here. Must nizani beperek cheskes abatim. There in cheskes abatim, where it talks about the purchase of land, it tells you how to be koine, and it describes what a chazaka is, which is noal Toratz v'goder. Either if you close the door, or if you opened up a new opening, or if you fixed part of the fence. These are all these are all the definition of chazaka, and it doesn't say walking around. So the Likutei Rashi says it means you walked around and you fixed as you were doing it, because Rashi learns it's a kinyan. But clearly, for Tosfos, it doesn't sound like it's a kinyan. Void my kami boy hachat femi b'shar duchtim. You know how many times in Shas the Gemara discusses a sale of a property? How come the Gemara doesn't discuss in those places what finalized the king? Just walking around its borders, you're just walking around. So because of that, Dr. Tosfos, we're not discussing kinyan over here. Rather, Venir Lefarish, the Myri, Shekanoi be kinyan, Gomer. You were already kind of the field. You purchased a field, you already were kind of, you didn't pay for it, but you already kind of. Shekanoi be kinyan Gomer, either Chalipin, or Shtar, or Chazaka, or Rafak Baporta, you moved something around, you did a regular kinyan. But even though you did a regular kinyan, you have a massive kiddush over here. Even though you did a regular kinyan, which would make it irrevocable, normally once the kinyan is chal, it's binding. When it comes to property, there's a way out. There's always a cop-out clause. Why? It's not irrevocable. Legabe ir. Im yotu oirin yochel achsabu. Kol zman sheleholach amitzari hasada la'arka u'lerachva lirai shinyani hasada. Behind you die shamitri. So Tosfos, even when you already made a kinyan, and in every other transaction that's irrevocable, when it comes to a land purchase, if there's error, even the kinyan doesn't make it irrevocable like that until there's this dai shamitri, and everybody wants to know what does that do. So there are those who say you're analyzing the property to see how you could already blend it with your portfolio. Maybe you have a neighboring property. It shows more of an acceptance of ownership. And there, at that point, you've accepted even if there's going to be error. But Zok Tosfos is very important. Of course, he didn't pay yet. The Benasan Moisari, if he made a kinyan and he paid, how could you say that he could back out? Are you going to tell me that a guy bought a property, made a kinyan, paid for it 20 years later? If you happen not to walk around the property, you're going to say it's revocable? That doesn't make sense. So basically, at the end of the day, in order to make a property sale irrevocable, you have to do one of the kinyanim, and in addition to that, you need either A, that you would have paid for it, or B, you walked around the border. That makes it really irrevocable. The double Tosfos, I don't understand something. If I didn't pay yet, the laymalay shkoil arach bezuzah. Regardless, it could be irrevocable forever if I didn't pay it. It could be revocable forever if I didn't pay it. You know why? Because if I don't want your property, I'll say, you know what? I'm not paying you. You want me to pay you? Take the property. I'll pay you with the property. Yes, I owe you because I made a kinyan and it's irrevocable. I'm going to pay you with Shavak Kesef. Pay you with the property. It's closed, and I owe you money. I don't have money. I don't have cash. I'm paying you with property. I don't have money. I have no cash for you. I have a property. Take my property. Yeah. Well, that's the way. It wouldn't work. You know why? Could go into Hoslu. What if the property is worth less than the purchase price? So then all of this. Inami Tosfos, it's obvious. Kivin shiyotu la iron. Of course, the property dropped in value because after you bought it, you're an iron. So now will drop the value. Ain't shava kamoisha shava is shasaka. Okay, so that takes care of this halacha. New halacha, a property that you purchased with a kinyan, it's not irrevocable until either you paid or you walked around the borders.
Okay.
Wait, what happened if they found a diamond on the property? Of the property.
Can you imagine? Beryl saying very good. Can you imagine? I said, take your property back. He takes it back, and they found a diamond on the property, or they found oil. No, change your mind. I want the property. I want the property. Okay, that makes the story more exciting. Okay,
So
we had
1 second. You're always bringing a case here where the koine wants to change his mind. But what if the makne, the seller, wants to change his mind? All of a sudden decides, you know what?
Once the seller makes a kinyan, there are no carve outs for him. So there is no way for him to back out.
But if he didn't get paid, he says, I'm taking it back, and that's it.
It doesn't work that way. I think he has to loan the guy investment, and the guy owns the property.
So it's at the same point. It's not like it's like crossing a bridge. In other words, when at a certain point he has to let go, even though the koine didn't take it yet.
No, the koine took it. The koine can't change. The koine can't back out for any reason other than iron. Besides iron, the koine cannot change his mind. It's a special carve out just for iron. Okay, Zok to Gemara. We had a whole big 2-block discussion. There was a steer in the psuka. It said Meitav Sedeu, and then it also said Yosy l'Rabbi Shava Kesef v'afilu Suba. So we had a Papa said in the name of Rabbi Huna Bar Yeshua that the way to answer the psukim is if you're giving karka, you have to give Meitav. Subin, every type of subin is by definition is Meitav because you'll always find somewhere where it has value, right? Even empty beer bottles has value at the beer store, right? So technically, according to Papa in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, you can pay back your chayiv with a crate of beer bottles that he can go now and return for his bottle deposit, and that's a lechatchila. Rav Huna Amar no, oy kesef, oy meitav, and it's a shaila. Rashi learns Rav Huna is now offering a second teretz. And that's what Rav Huna Amar. Tosus brings a gersa that it's Amar Rav Huna, and it's not going back to that kasha. He's just telling us halach. But either way, it means the same thing. Oy kesef, oy meitav. You have two choices: cash or meitav. Frank Gemara, Eisvei Rav Nachman or Rav Huna. How could you say cash or meitav? We have a pasuk Yosy l'Rabbi Shava Kesef afilu Subin. And for the Gemara, Hachabamay Askinon with the last lay. The only time you can give subin is if you have no meitav property, you have no cash, all you have left is shava kesef, no matter what it is. As a last resort, you're allowed to pay him with beer bottles. If he doesn't have anything else to pay with, why do we need a pasuk to tell him he can pay with beer bottles? That's all he has to pay with. Dr. Gemara, you still need a pasuk because I'm not taking the bottles back to the beer store. You take the bottles back to the beer store. But I see like kesef and bring me cash. Kamash Malon. That no, I can force him to take the beer bottle. Correct. So that Tosus is going to discuss exactly that question. So we have here a machloikis lalacha. Rav Huna Bar Yeshua, Rav Papa, the name of Rabbi Yeshua that we learned 2 days ago. He holds lichatchila. If you want, you can give a guy beer bottles. Rav Huna says you can't. If you're stuck and you have nothing else, then you can give him beer bottles.
Is he willingly paying, or is it a seizure of his property? He's willingly saying, "Come and take this," or they're saying, "I don't have anything," and then they say,
"No, he could. Even if he's willingly paying." Yeah. So according to the first shita, he could give him those, and they got to take it. And according to the second shita, only if he has nothing else.
Cash is a requirement. Why don't they? Why is Rav Huna not saying that they force him to liquidate the beer bottles and pay him in cash?
Because we have a pasuk of Yosy l'Rabbi Shava Kesef because of the pasuk. The pasuk is teaching you that even though matzah is all these crumbs, you got to pay meitav, but you can give him beer bottles. That's a chiddush. So he says you can only give it to the evet if you have nothing else. But the other Rav Huna Bar Yeshua said you can give it lechatchila if you have bigger. So let's see how we pass it. So I'm going to slide here into Tosus Rav Huna Amar Kesef by meitav. And I'm just going to skip to where the loch is. Uvesefer Rab Alphas, which is the Rif. The Rif Pirish, the Rav Huna Bar Yeshua Rav Papa de Lo'il. Pligi is Rav Huna Docha. There's a machlokes. And the machlokes is lechatchila can you pay with subin and not. The Inusabri, 2 days ago, what we learned from Rav Papa and Rav Huna Bar Yeshua holds, Kol Mile Meitafu. Everything is meitav, va'afilu subin. So lechatchila you can pay with beer bottles. Rafunas over, the law have a meta. That's what you have to pay lechatchila. If you don't have anything else, then we'll let you get away with it. But lechatchila you can't pay that. Upasa kirav papa ucharafuna bered Yabishua shein basroi. So that means the Rif Paskin Lukula that lechatchila you can shove a guy beer bottles if you're a mazik. But Rabbi Yotam and Yosy Rabbi Yotam disagrees with the Rif. The Mefarish, he said, Sheyesh Gimel Dinim bin Azakin. There's three, I'm sorry. Sheyesh Gimel Dinim. There's three different dinim. Bin Azakin, by Nizakin, it's Oy Kasaf Oy Meta, like Rav Huna said over here. The Lesle, then Afilusu. So the Rabbi Yotam is not possible with the earlier Gemara, the Rabbi Yotam is possible with this Gemara. Balchayv is not like Mazik. If he has money, if the Balchayv has money, he for sure has to give money. And what if the loiva does not have money? He cannot tell the malva zil tarch v'zavin v'aisezuzay. So I'm not sure if I'm reading this right. I'm not sure if the loiva can't tell the malva. It seems like the malva can't tell the loiva. The malva cannot tell the loiva zil tarach v'zavin v'aisezuzay. He cannot say that. Rather, he has to accept it, which is the same thing as mazik.
Otherwise, then why would they be the same? I think maybe it's the other way around.
So it could be. I'm not sure. Could Amar Hasam?
If I'm a lender, yeah, I didn't lend you beer bottle.
I want money. Yeah. What about a lekeach who bought something and there's a mekachtos, now he's got to get the money back from the vendor? What about a worker? If the balabais does not have money to pay, Omar lay, he could tell the balabais zil tarach v'zavin v'aisezuzay. It's your problem. Go find me money. I can't tell you take whatever you did for your schar. You have to come up with cash. So for sure, by a poil, the employer has to come up with cash. What we're not sure about is how to read Tosfos. But Pashas from the words of Tosfos, it says v'les lezuze loy yoymar lei zil tarch v'zavin. The malva cannot tell the loiva zil tarch v'zavin v'aisezuzay. Right?
Our school says exactly. You can tell the worker. You can't tell the worker I'm going to pay you with the scrap copper, but you
That's
can tell
fine,
him.
but what about?
But you could tell about
You
loiv.
can tell about
You could.
You can tell them about that?
That's
Oh,
it.
so
There's
we're
a
reading it right.
Situation where the law, where this is the law. So, right, so.
Now, chances are he's not going to lend you money again.
Yeah,
but you
but
can still
that's-
tell.
Yeah,
That's the
but
halacha,
pay the
yeah,
worker,
that's,
you
you
can
know,
tell them. That's
That's
I guess Tosfos is bringing the second case to show this contradiction.
for the entire party. So you give the guy
So,
$1 million
so
bucks.
the question, how, it's very hard for us to say when these because apply, when they don't. That's why we have Chazal. But so the only Balchayv is not much different than Mazik. If there's if I have no cash, I can pay. But in either case, if I don't have cash, then I can give Subin. Right? If I don't have cash, then I can give Subin. I can't give Subin l'chatchila. And by an employee, you can't give Subin at all. But Mazik is exercise, but we're applying it to Balchayv as well.
Which I find.
Right. I hear it. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. So that we took care of that.
Now what happened to Shava Kesef Kekesef? What happened to that? The guy that what do you mean I'm sorry, I don't have cash. I'm gonna give you instead. I'm gonna give you Bitcoin.
No, I could tell you, what do you mean you don't have cash? Whatever you have, put it on Kijiji.
Right,
Put it on Kijiji, make a garage sale, and bring me cash.
Why you put it on Kijiji and you turn it into cash?
Money, you owe me money.
It says.
I owe you a value. I don't owe you money. I owe you value. I owe you $100 or the equivalent thereof.
I gave you $1 million. Give me back $1 million.
It is interesting though, when you make this contract, you say that the contract will be settled in Canadian dollars.
Canadian dollars. Well, that's what I suppose what a difference.
Right, but exactly, but not beer bottle. You're
Yeah,
gonna pay
but
me back
I
in
can
cash.
give you a trillion pennies.
Well, no, actually you can't, not in Canada. There's limits.
That-
Halacha, you're not allowed to do that either.
There's laws that say what.
That's only
considered-
because of the case.
No, what's considered legal tender, right?
Pennies are the middle.
Only
not-
up
not Canada.
to,
Nickel.
no, but only up to so many. I think it's $5 per nickel. You can't bring more than 100.
Listen, I heard that someone borrowed a lot of money from Mr. Sanik and he wanted to pay him back in Bilkis.
And herring wrapped it.
Okay.
Not even.
So Dr. Gemara Vayter.
Omer Avas.
Aye.
Omer Avasi. Ksofim harehein kekarka. Ksofim is just like karka. Those were the words he said. And we're trying to understand what was meant by those words. Lema hilchas. Legabi, what is Rav Asi trying to tell us this chiddush? And the Gemara is going to have a couple of tries, and then the Gemara is going to come back to the first try. If he's saying that you have to pay either kesef or meita, which is like Rav Huna just said. In fact, the Gemara hani the Rav Huna. So what's the problem? Big deal. So it's Rav Huna. Why can't Rav Asi say the same halacha as Rav Huna? Zok the Gemara. The only problem is when the Gemara quoted Rav Asi, the Gemara should have said, Instead of the Gemara quoting Amar Avasi, the Gemara should have said the Chain Amar Avasi. Ella, so therefore, since the Gemara didn't say that, it must be that they understood Rabasi to mean something else. So what did he mean? Ella l'shnei acham shechok. Maybe he was referring to two brothers that were splitting up a Yerusha. There was $1 million of property and there was $1 million of cash. V'not al echad karka. One of the brothers took the $1 million of property. The echad ksafim, and the other brother took the $1 million of cash. Uba b'achoiv, and there was a b'achoiv that was owed $1 million. V'not al karka. He sees the karka because metaltal diasmi le'mishtadel b'achoiv. So his only recourse was to seize the karka. So what is the halacha? Zokt Rab Asi ksafim arein kakarka. They're the same, and therefore they both share in the burden. Dozal hai v'shakif palgo b'ksafim b'hadei. The person the brother who lost the entire property of $1 million could now go tell his brother, you got $1 million in cash, you're going to give me half of that money, you're going to give me $500,000. Fek Rapshita. Hi, bro, hi, la, bro. Is this one a son and he's responsible to pay his father's debt, and this one is not? But Ikad Amri, let's tackle this from the opposite 180 degrees. Adirabba, the person with the cash should not have to compensate his brother. Let's look at it from a different perspective. To Amr Lay, the person who took the cash said, when I took the cash, I was taking a risk and I accepted that risk. You have to accept the risks of what you selected. To Amr Lay, I took cash with the knowledge, the magnavu, minach. If it gets stolen from me, I have no recourse to tell you to give me half of your karka. That's a risk. Taking money can be stolen. When you took the land, you also accepted upon yourself risk. You can't get a penny from me. That's the deal. I accepted the risk. You accepted the risk. But regardless whether it's pshita or whether it's not true, Rabasi couldn't have meant that. So once again, what was the meaning of Rabasi's words? Ksofim harahen kikar. Two brothers split land. There was $2 million worth of land. And one brother took $1 million worth of land, and the other brother took another $1 million worth of land. And the Ba'achoiv came along, and took the land of one of the two brothers. And that's where Abasi is saying that the other brother has to give his, out of the $1 million land that he has to either give half of that land to his brother, or kesef harei karka, or he could pay off his brother with $500,000 in cash. Break the more, it doesn't make sense to say that that's what Rabasi meant with his new halacha here of kesef harei karka, because v'ha'amar Rabasi chadazim. This halacha that I could pay off with cash when you want to collect my karka, Rabasi has already taught us this halacha. The itmar we had a machlokes. Ha'achim shecholku, brothers split the Yerusha. They each took $1 million property. And the Ba'achoiv came and seized the property of one of them. Rav Omar batla machlokes, meaning the chalukas batal. They take the leftover property of $1 million and they split it, and each one gets a property worth $500,000. Shmuel Amar Viter. Shmuel said it's too bad for the person whose karka was seized. He gets nothing, and his brother gets to keep the $1 million property. And Rabasi comes up the middle. Rabasi Omar noitel revia bekarka, oi revia b'mois. He gets a quarter, and that quarter can be paid either in karka or in mois. So as far as our discussion of Kesef or Karka, Rabasi said it already. Whatever you have to pay, why you have to pay Revi, we'll get to in a second. But whatever you do have to pay, you have a choice to pay it either in Karka or in Mois. So you see that point already. Now the Gemara gets into explaining the three sheets. Rav Amar Batla Machloikis, Kasavar Acham Shalcholku, Kayarshim. If brothers split up, they're like Yorshim, and Rashi says, Val Shneim Lefroya, and it's incumbent upon both of them to pay the father's debt. Hilchach Mechtes Chelko Yachshavoi. The person who did not lose the property, he has to give half of the property to his brother, which is a $500,000 property. Ushmul Amar Vitar, he owes the person who lost his karka loses everything because kasavar acham shecholku lekuchais ukelakeach shaloi bachrayistam. We look at it as if they each purchased the part that they settled on from their brother, and they bought it without a price. So there's no recourse. So if one of the brothers lost the property, he has no recourse. Rabasi has a suffix, not to review bekarka or review b'mois, because misafkalei ika yarshandami ika lekuchis. Hilchach not to review bekarka or review b'mois, and it's very, very simple. I have a property worth $1 million. You're claiming that I'm entitled to $500,000 of my property, right? You. Now here's a suffix. Do we pass in like Rav? You're entitled to that $500,000, or do we pass like Shmuel that you're not entitled to that $500,000? So it's moment hamutal b'suffix, and by moment hamutal b'suffix you say achlek. So therefore, I have to give you $250,000.
No, Shmuel's not saying you're not entitled. Shmuel is talking about between two brothers.
We're talking about Rabasi is talking about the same case as Shmuel and Rav. Rabasi says, I pay $250,000.
Because one took Kasef and one.
No, we're talking about both took karka.
Yeah.
And one of the karkas were seized.
After one of them.
He took one of them. So Rav said, we resplit everything all over again, and you get $500,000 of the karka. Shmuel said, you get nothing at all. And Rabasi goes halfway. The brother who lost his property, whose property was seized.
There's no claim on his brother.
No claim on his brother.
Because it's Kilkucha Shaloi Bachrais. And Rabasi wasn't sure. Are Acham Shecholku Yorshim or Acham Shecholku Kilkucha Bachrais? So you split $250,000. So it's $250,000. And now the $250,000, Rabasi has the sheet that you could either pay him in property or in cash, because Kesef Erika Karka. But whatever the case is, that can't be what Rabasi meant, because he said it over here. Ella, let's go back to the first suggestion. Elamaya Erika Karka, Linyan Meitav. And it should have said the Chaynam Rabasi. No, aim of a Chaynam Rabasi. Kavalti. Zog to Gemara weiter. Omar Rabasi, Omar Afun. The mitzvah. I'm sorry. Omar Abzeir, Omar Afun. I'm sorry. The mitzvah. When it comes to a mitzvah, ad shlish. You have to spend up to a third. What does this mean? My shlish. What does it mean up to a third? This is a fascinating Gemara. Ilay mashlish beisai. If it means you actually have to be willing to spend 1/3 of your assets to do a mitzvah. Elamayata, if you're going to do that, you're going to have a massive problem, because Yisrami litlasa mitzvasa, by the time you have 3 mitzvahs, you're done. Leisiv l'kula beisa. And of course, Taisa says, if you're always giving away 1/3 of your nechasim, each consecutive third gets lower and lower. But the Gemara is still asking how you talking that a person should spend so much of his worth and impoverish himself. It's not mistaber to say it. Ella Omer Abzera behider mitzvah at shlish b'mitzvah. If
No segue. There's no segue. Totally new topic. It's introduced here possibly because like the previous one, they've been refunim.
Okay.
And
it's like whenever you go to an Amazon store, if you buy something, they always say other items from this buyer, right? So that's what this is. The Gemara is like Amazon, other items from everyone. Zog to Gemara. It's funny because usually everything has a place. This was a like as I renegade halacha, so we'll put it over here.
Our school will need to fill in. Need to fill in 1/3 of a amud, so let's stick it here.
Or this brother just had to pay $250,000, and now I got to give 1/3 for mitzvah. So now, but this is munt Eibishter. So all I want to be hid the mitzvah at shlish b'mitzvah. Now there's a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos what this means. Rashi means, let's say you decide you're buying a Sefer Torah and you're going to pick this Sefer Torah. Then you find the Sefer Torah that's nicer, but it's a third more. You have to pay a third more. That's what Rashi learns. Tosha doesn't like that pshat so much, the Meforshim say, because ain't no davar soif. Then you can keep on going a third. But there's also a try that what if you bought it already? It's not refundable. So most sheet is sold. That's only if you could trade it in or if you could find somebody to buy. Not that you're going to have to go buy a whole new one. So Tosha Zivalti doesn't like that. Tosha says it's speaking a guy bought an esrog and it was the minimum shear, the smallest that an esrog could be, and then he found an esrog that was bigger. So you're mechuyev to buy an esrog up to a third bigger than the minimum shear. That's how Tosha lives. Boyer Bashi, this shlish is it milagav or shlish milabar? That means if the original Sefer Torah is worth 6, do I have to buy up to 8 because 2 is a third? Or is it shlish milabar or is it an extra 3, which would be 1/3 after you've added? Teku, I think the Shulchan Aruch says this halacha is discussed in Hilchos Esrog, and it's a tough Reish Nun Vav. I looked it up in the today by Shul I couldn't elaborate because we were out of time. I'm going to share 2 interesting things about this. The Marav Amar, it says milagav because I guess we go Lakula. Right? Right. So the Gemara went Lakula.
Tell you what to do.
The Marav Amar Mishmeid Rab Zeir Achlish Mishaloi. Up to a third, you have to take your own one, and you don't get paid back. You get paid back by the Mabah. But Mikan Ve'elech Mishalach Kadosh Baruch Hu, if you pay more than that, you should know it'll be Karen Kiyam Mabah, but it will also be Oichel Parasayim by the Mazah. You'll make your money back. So I looked up this to Mishabura and the Dirshu Mishabura, who gives you a lot of background. So the Mishabura says something very, very important. Even though when it comes to mitzvahs, we actually paskin you should pay 10%. You should pay up to 10% of your nechos. If you need an esrog, you have to pay up to 10% to do a mitzvah, not more than that. That's to do a mitzvah. But what if you have to spend money to avoid doing an avera? There, you have to spend every last penny that you own. And the Mishabur explains the difference is quite simple. If I'm not doing a mitzvah, it's b'shev al tasa. B'shev al tasa, don't do a mitzvah if it's going to cost you more than 10% of your income. But an avera that you're going to do an avera b'kum b'asei, any expense, even if it totally impoverishes you and takes everything away, you have to put everything in to avoid even one avera. And they say not only a chiv misa, even a lav, like any tiny avera, you have to avoid. So the shaila is there's a special mitzvah to pay money for an esrog. So there's actually a special mitzvah dafka to pay money for an esrog. So the Dirshu Mishmur discusses what if you're a rich guy and you give money to 10,000 moistus, and the moistus buy you a big beautiful esrog. Are you mechuyev to go out and buy an esrog? Because you're not supposed to get an esrog for free. You're supposed to spend money for an esrog. So
Coming out of the future.
So the distribution brings down for the poiskim, I think from a Chaim Kanevsky, I think he brings down that if they're giving you the esrog because of a karas toiv, because you've done good things for them, that's you're allowed to. Then you're absolutely allowed to use that esrog. But if someone's giving you a freebie, then no, you have to extend yourself for it. But if someone's giving you an esrog, if a Moshe is giving you an esrog, you paid for that esrog 100 times.
It's interesting. The story that we find saw this by Sukkot that a lot of the esrog stuff came and gave him a esrog because they wanted to be able to say that he
uses our esrog.
Yeah.
So Kubi's providing a service. So he's providing a service. Yeah, it's like Nike and whatever. That's exactly what it is. It is an endorsement. That's what it is. Okay. Developing. You know, there's a famous saying that if you're dealing with chassidus, it's always better to negotiate in advance. Like I used to go to Tosh, so every couple of years they'd give me Galila or Hagba Mincha Yom Kippur. So somebody asked me how much did you pay for it. I said I didn't pay for it. I didn't buy it. They said, oh, you're in trouble. Oh, you're in trouble. The cheapest way to get anything is to buy. You know what you're paying for it. If they're giving you a gift, oh, you're in big trouble. There's nothing more about it. What
did it cost you? In the end?
Not a penny. They actually didn't ask anything.
How much does it cost if you win the Bava raffle?
The Bava is very makbid on paying out in full. They will, like I have a friend who once bought a raffle for $36,000 from one of the Moshes in Toronto I'm not going to mention the name of the Moshe, although it's no longer existing. And he won $36,000. So when the Rosh Moshe called him and said, Reb Chaim, making up a name, Chaim, Mazel Tov, you won $36,000. So this Reb Chaim is a friend of mine. He says, I told him, you know what? You keep 18 and just give me 18. He thought that was very generous. It's silent on the phone. He said, hello, are you there? Are you there? Silent. He said, okay, you know what? How about you keep 20 and just give me 16? Silent on the phone. He said, hello, you there? Still. How about you keep 30, give me 6? Silent. He says, then he said, how about you keep it all and never call me again? So I told my friend, I have no suffix in my mind that they fair and square picked out your name.
Yes, sir.
The question that I have is how many names they picked out before your name and they discarded. And I'm telling you, had they known your response, they would have kept on going. If I have a responsibility to watch something, like my property from damaging, I'm responsible if anything happens. In other words, if I did not watch it properly, I was the one who was the hechsher. I was the one who caused it to damage. What if I wasn't the sole cause of my property damaging? I was part of the cause. Nevertheless, I'm mechuyev for the whole nezek as if I'm fully responsible for what occurred. And of course, the Gemara is going to have to give specific cases to illustrate these rules. Where are you mechuyev to pay for nechasim that you damaged? If it's nechasim shein b'meila, in other words, if it doesn't belong to hektish. If it belongs to hektish, we have the halacha we learned it. It has to be nechasim shein shel b'nei bris. If you're mazik the nechasim alagoy, you don't have a chiv to pay. Nechasim amiyuchadim, they have to belong to somebody. If you're mazik nechasim of hefker, you don't have to pay. Uvechol makom, you're mechuyev for damage that you do anywhere, chutz mereshus hamiyuchadis lemazik, unless the damage occurred in your own property. So if your animal walks into my property and my Doberman attacks your animal, I don't have to pay because who asked you to send your animal into my property? Or reshus nizik v'amazik, and if it's in the reshus nizik and the mazik, which it's a joint reshus, which the Gemara is going to explain. Kishehizik chava mazik l'shalem tashlum nezik l'meitav haaretz. If there's damage done, the mazik has to pay with meitav. Tanu rabban. Let's illustrate this with a concrete example. Shar ubar, a shar ubar, shemasron lecher shoyte v'kat. So there's definitely a reneging of your duty to watch this properly. You gave it over to a compromised situation, lecher shoyte v'kat, v'zikui, and they damaged. Chayav l'shalom, the owner now has to pay. Masha'enken be'esh, if the damage was due to fire, you wouldn't have to pay if you gave it to a cher shoyte. Let's get more precise to what we're talking about. If what you gave over to a cher shoyte was an ox, but it was tied up, it was fastened, it was secured, or a bar that was covered, it was secure. What would be a parallel case if you gave a shoyte a fire? Gachelas. It's a glowing coil, but it's not fiery. So, why should you be chayiv for shor and bar and not for eish? What's the difference? Ella, maybe b'shar mutar or bar megula. You really gave him a menace. You gave a cher shoyte v'katan an unfastened shor or an uncovered bar. The kavasoga be'eish shall heves. You gave a burning, flamey, major hazard, not some hot, fiery, easy to ignite something else. Masha enkein be'esh de potter. Are you telling me in such a case you gave a cher shoyte v'katan a flaming coal? You're going to be potter? Where do we say you're not mechuyev if the fire was caused by the cher shoyte v'katan? You gave him a gachelas, which is not a flaming thing. It's not likely to ignite something else. V'liba, and this cher shoyte v'katan blew on it, fanned it, and he made it flame up. So you didn't give him a hazard; he made a hazard. That's where you'll be potter. Avol shall have it. But if you gave him such a dangerous thing, you gave him a grenade that's about to blow, chayiv, of course you'll be chayiv. My timer, the habari hezeka, because this is basically a guaranteed damage. You gave him an explosive situation. So once again, we need to find a case where, in a parallel case, shar and bar will be chayiv and the ish will be potter. Zoktem aloilam b'shar kosher ubar mechusa. So Udekarmid, you asked earlier, I'll tell you simply. Shar dachid and tuke. A shar, even if it's fastened, it moves around after a while. In fact, a fastened shar could loosen itself. And therefore, I guess they didn't know how to tie a boat. When you tie up a boat with a special knot, it doesn't loosen. But I guess they didn't know how to do that in those days. And it won't loosen. It's normal to loosen. So therefore, since it's normal to loosen, you gave this child a hazard. Even if he ends up untying it and takes it to damage, you're still party to this damage. You're hechshati v'miktas nischay. Bar, the same thing. Darkil and tura. Even if it's covered, things shift. You got to be careful watching it the whole time. So you were negligent by giving it to the child. Even if the child actively uncovered it, you're still party to this damage. And therefore, you're chayiv in the whole nazar. But kacheles, kama de shavikla, ma'ami vasla. I didn't give him a danger at all, because had it just been left there, it would have eventually died out. The child himself made it into a hazard. I didn't give him a hazard. So this is not even a shayat of a mikvah niskay. I didn't do anything wrong, therefore I'm potter. Rabbi Yochanan holds, even if you give a shalheves, it's potter. And we're going to soon see why. Well, we understand why you'll be chayav for the shar and bar, but why would you be potter if you gave the child an explosive situation? So tomorrow I'll tell you why. Because Hazam tzavso the cheresh kagarim. At the end of the day, sitting there by itself, it wouldn't have done damage. It needed the input of the cheresh to take it and touch something with it. Hacha loy tzavso the cheresh kagarim. Here, the animal went and did it by itself. He didn't add anything to it. So therefore, you're mechuyev, and therefore, this is a good example of chsharti makes us niskay. You were negligent; you didn't totally cause it, but therefore you're mechuyev. Okay, I think we should stop here because I actually learned till the end of the Amid today, but it's just the beginning of a long brisa that we're going to have to go over tomorrow anyway. So we'll stop here and we'll be tomorrow.
I just want to add, thank you, Yosy. Something we talked about paying earlier with bottles of beer or with pennies. Avi, are you on the line? You have a story from Waterbury? Where is
I'm
he?
here.
Yes,
Here.
tell the story. You got 60 seconds to tell the story. Go ahead.
60 seconds. I got a parking fine in Waterbury. I was not given a chance to have my day in court. So I went in and paid with pennies, $50 worth of pennies. And
tell me about the lady. What was the reaction? That's the point. You think you got them back?
I got them back. I did my share. I brought them in rolled. So just take 50 rolls of pennies. I'm not here to punish the lady behind the counter. It's not her fault. But her boss came out and said, no, she has to open them and count out the 5,000 pennies by hand. And she did not have a very good day. I think she went home crying, and I felt very bad for her.
Canada, they wouldn't have to accept.
We call that pennywise.
So just when you think you're going to be ending up punishing, you end up punishing the wrong person when you think you're going to end up giving in beer bottles. That was the point.
I hear it.
Right? That's all. It's the sweet revenge is not quite the way it is. Shloimi, are you going up for Tehillim?
He just walked out.
He just went already.
Okay, are you going up for Tehillim? I need somebody to put a phone by Rabbi Philip.
If you want, I'll go.
Okay, shkoyach.
Okay. I log into 1948.
Yeah, just stay here. Stay right here. I'll host.
I can't stay, but my phone's not logged in. I'm here on the computer. I have to go upstairs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you could bring your phone. If Shlomi didn't bring his, then log in on his phone. Put it on one of those holders right in front of Rabbi Philip. That's it.
Okay,
Okay.
Audio only or video as well?
Yeah, video also. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes.
Good enough. We miss you already here.
Yeah, I know. Miss you too. Baruch Hashem.
Avi represented you very well here.
Yeah, I heard.